Hey everyone, the big Chinese sale just kicked off the other day. It's hard to say whether you'll actually score some good deals with real discounts or not, but often, stuff bought during the sale ends up costing more than on a regular market day. Either way, a sale is a great reason to put together another top list of useful gadgets from China for you. Just a reminder, I've already made videos on this topic before, 3 of them, in fact, including one about modules from China for just $1. You'll find all the links in the description. Today, I'll be showing you different products that cost no more than $10, and in most cases, no more than $5. As always, these are only items I've personally bought and actually have something to say about. And if you're interested in full, detailed reviews, you can always find them on my second channel via the links in the description. Today, I'll be looking at both pretty popular items and some more niche ones, plus a little bit of the forbidden stuff. Let's start with something simple. This purple board is basically a charger for 6 classic lithium-ion batteries at once. The most popular charger for lithium batteries is definitely the TP4056, and the Chinese make all sorts of versions of this charger. This particular model is pretty cheap, and it actually has 6 TP40056 chips on board. They run off a common 5-volt supply, and can charge anywhere from 1 to 5 lithium cells individually. So this thing can't charge batteries as a whole, only individual cells. Each cell on the board has its own LED indicator. They're dual color and show the charging status. The maximum charging current is 1 ampere. You can lower it by replacing the current setting resistor. The TP works in linear mode, and that's its drawback. Given the number of chips, this board will heat up noticeably. But the other side of the board is a solid ground plane, which acts as a heat sink. You can improve cooling by attaching thermal insulation to this side, and then putting a heat sink on top. It works without surprises, charging the battery using the correct CVCC method up to 4.2 volts. Here you have a probe or tester for standard optocouplers like the PC817. A compact tester that costs less than $2 has spring-loaded probes, making it convenient to check optocouplers, and the anode is marked. The board has additional spots for installing surface mount and dip package optocouplers. But all that isn't necessary, since you can check any optocoupler more quickly and efficiently with the probes. The Chinese also offer a slightly more expensive version of this tester with a built-in battery. My version, however, requires a 5-volt power source, powered via Type-C. Here's how the tester works. The board features an NE555 chip, which functions as a pulse generator. The first LED stays on constantly, while the second is connected in series with the transistor of the optocoupler being tested and goes to the timer's output. Power is supplied to the optocoupler's LED. If it's faulty, naturally the transistor won't open and the LED won't blink. The circuit is pretty clever. If the optocoupler's transistor, say, is shorted, then instead of blinking, the second LED will stay on constantly. Capacitor discharger. For some people it's just a trinket, for others it's not. The device is designed to discharge high-voltage capacitors after the power is turned off. If you work with switching power supplies, such a discharge fork will be very useful. It has convenient spring-loaded probes, there's a rectifier at the input, and the polarity of the connection doesn't matter. The current doesn't matter either. The discharge fork doesn't care whether it's AC or DC. There's an indicator LED on the board. It lights up red when the voltage on a capacitor is above 70 volts, and green when it's below 40. The board features a kilovolt MOSFET transistor, load resistors, and some small components for controlling the switch and indication. The entire high-voltage section is covered with heat shrink tubing. But for added safety, I recommend putting on a couple more layers of the same heat shrink tubing. This thing can operate in circuits up to 1000 volts, but I wouldn't recommend going above 700. It discharges quickly, a 470 microfarad capacitor in just a couple of seconds. It works, and it works as intended. It's inexpensive, but honestly, a light bulb with a couple of wires is still the best option. Although this kind of tester is more compact and not fragile. The only inconvenience is the limited distance between the probes. You can't always reach the terminal you need. High voltage converter. This thing will be especially interesting for high voltage enthusiasts. Tesla coils, voltage multipliers, Jacob's ladders, all sorts of demo stands, ignition devices, and yes, I know you're thinking about stun guns too. But keep in mind, the converter is great at burning out high voltage pulse diode stacks and capacitors. It's a small board with a high voltage transformer. The main logic is built on a microcontroller. It acts as the generator, and all the protections are tied through it. For example, there's protection against undervoltage and overload. Next, the signal goes to a pair of EG3013 gate drivers, and then to the power switches. And here there are 4 of them. The switches are really powerful. N013H03, 30 volts, 150 amps, 65 watts, with an on-state resistance of about 1.6 milliohms. The converter is a bridge type with a claimed power of 70 watts. which is pretty impressive for such a tiny device. The transformer is sectioned and well potted. The arc produced is really solid, stretching several centimeters. And best of all, the converter can operate like this for quite a long time. In case of short circuits or overloads, the power is cut back, since there's protection built in. The Chinese also have similar converters with lower power, mostly with microcontroller control and the same circuit design. Tweezers with ceramic tips. These are consumables just like any other similar tool. What makes them convenient is that their tips are made of zirconia ceramic. The tweezers are anti-static, and certain electronic components and other metal shavings won't stick to them. The third big advantage is heat resistance. After all, it's ceramic, so it doesn't care about the heat from soldering equipment. Heat it up as much as you want. The tips are replaceable, sold separately, and there are many different types available. Drawbacks. They're not precision tweezers, even though the Chinese market them as such. After you receive them, you'll probably have to manually align the tips yourself. The tip can't be too sharp because of the material. Zirconia ceramic is very hard, wear-resistant, and has good flexural strength. They even make knives out of it. But still, you always pay for high hardness with brittleness. If you try to pry something with the tip of these tweezers, the tip will just chip off. Same thing as you drop them. Don't even try to snip off the excess to adjust them. You'll just break your cutters. But overall, it's a good tool and very convenient for many tasks. Before I show you the next two devices, I want to emphasize once again that illegally recording information using special equipment, as well as the distribution of such equipment, is a criminal offense. So, if things go wrong when ordering these kinds of items, you could run into trouble not just with customs, but with the law in general. Not everything that's for sale can be legally purchased. Again, my job is just to warn you. The rest is up to you. You can't always convince the authorities that it's just a karaoke microphone or a baby monitor. An FM transmitter, or as people commonly call it, a bug. This tiny device, weighing just 1 gram and costing about $3, can be used in a security system, as a baby monitor, or as an FM microphone. It runs on about 5 volts, and the stated transmitter power is a whole 1 watt, which is a lot for something this small. The transmitter doesn't come with an antenna, but you can easily make one yourself from a piece of multi-strand wire about 40 to 50 centimeters long. The maximum reception range is up to 800 meters. It's worth noting that the range, of course, depends on the terrain, the antenna, and the receiver you use. You adjust the frequency by turning the variable capacitor. An electret microphone and an additional low-frequency amplification stage are used. Next comes the transmitter itself in 2 stages of high-frequency amplification. With the right power supply and antenna, this transmitter is capable of much more than just 800 meters. Of course, that's if we're talking about direct line of sight in an open field. We've all put together a similar transmitter on the fly and played around with it. It has a number of drawbacks. The frequency is unstable and drifts depending on many factors: battery discharge, the presence of obstacles, and so on. But this thing here is a bit more serious. It runs on a 3-volt lithium button cell, with a stated line of sight range of 200 to 500 meters, which is not much compared to the previous version. But the devil is in the details. This is a transmitter with quartz frequency stabilization. It's portable. Depending on the range, power source, and obstacles, the frequency does not drift. It broadcasts strictly on the selected frequency. In this case, it's the UHF band, more precisely 409.595 MHz for this particular unit. And not just anyone can listen in. You need a special receiver or a walkie-talkie for that. As a baby monitor or karaoke microphone, this thing is excellent. It doesn't make much noise, is always stable in operation, and has high microphone sensitivity. You can even hear a whisper in a quiet room from 3 to 4 meters away. If you're interested in the design of a homemade transmitter like this with quartz frequency stabilization, check the description. There will be a link to my video there. Charging module for lithium-ion. This small board is actually a pretty decent charging system for classic lithium-ion batteries from 1 to 4 cells. It has a Type-C input, which is very convenient. The supply voltage ranges from 5 to 20 volts, with an automatic trigger. What's interesting about this module is that it can both step up and step down the input voltage. So, for example, a 4-cell pack with a charge cutoff voltage of 16.8 volts can be charged from a 5-volt power source. It features charge process indication and high efficiency thanks to synchronous conversion. The maximum charging current is up to 2 amps, charging the battery using an almost proper method. It provides stable voltage with current limiting. The limitation is implemented at the input, which doesn't provide very precise control, and in theory, depending on the supply voltage, the charging current will vary, so the stated 2 amps is not the maximum. Aside from the lack of full current stabilization, this is actually a pretty decent module, which I've already managed to use in some DIY projects and so far I'm satisfied. Isolated DC-DC converter. Small and inexpensive converters like these can come in handy, where you need to provide galvanic isolation of the powered load from the main power source. They come in various fixed voltages, but nothing stops you from recalculating the voltage divider responsible for the output voltage to get an intermediate value. This device is built on a single chip, which integrates everything necessary for the converter to operate. The input and output are completely isolated thanks to transformer isolation. The supply voltage ranges from 9 to 36 volts. The output can be 5, 9, 12, or 24 volts. That is, the converter can both step up and step down the voltage, which is typical for isolated converters. In addition, for example, you can disassemble the transformer and wind several secondary windings with the required voltages to get several fully isolated power lines. The highest efficiency of the converter is 88%. The maximum power is up to 10 watts. There are protections against undervoltage with turn-on hysteresis, overvoltage protection at the output, as well as short circuit and overload protection. One of the noticeable drawbacks of this converter is significant output voltage ripple, up to 1.5 volts at maximum power. This is not all that surprising since the module costs just a couple of bucks, and the Chinese manufacturers didn't really bother with measures to reduce ripple. There are only a few ceramic capacitors, and that's it. That brings this video to an end. If you found it useful, don't forget to like and share the video with your friends on social media. By doing so, you give tremendous support to the channel and to the creator personally. All useful links, as always, are in the description. And with that, I'll say goodbye. As always, this was Kazinov K. With you. See you next time.